Hello, this is Joe and welcome to my channel, AGTV for Life. I'm happy you're here today because you're going to watch a pretty cool video. Addy and I took a trip into New York City, and if you've watched some of my other videos, you know that I live in New York and I live right outside of New York City. So it's pretty easy for me to get in and out of the city, and here we are walking through my town and heading to the train station. This day was a really fun adventure, and I'm a member of a museum in the city that I absolutely love, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about this museum that Addy and I went to because we went to go visit an exhibit that was recently opened, and it was really interesting. The exhibit that we went to visit represents the year 1869, and I'm sure you know this. Addy was born in 1855. So in 1869, Addy would have been 14 years old. Visiting this exhibit included so many elements of Addy's life. And I know you're going to love seeing everything about this exhibit. And then I also have a very interesting story to share with you about an interaction that I had with somebody. So I'll talk about that a little bit later on in the video. We had to take a train and a couple of subways to get to the exhibit. So this is the first train ride we're taking, and Addy has her seat. And now we're waiting for the subway. I changed her on the train actually, and she's trying to figure out where we're going. She wasn't too sure, so this subway map came in handy. I loved it when years ago you would actually get subway maps for free, but not anymore. Addy wanted to sit by herself, so that's what Addy got. The subway ride was pretty quick, and some people were pretty amused by her. We were headed to 103 Orchard Street, and that is in the Lower East Side. So here she is after her train ride. Now we're going to head out onto the street and walk the rest of the way. Okay, Addy, one more picture and I'm picking you up. We made it. Here we are at the Tenement Museum. As you can see, it was an absolutely gorgeous day. Addy is pretty excited too. So here is one of the buildings, and this building has a store on the grade level. So the first thing we did is we went into the store and checked out some of the merchandise. And they have an extensive collection of books for various time periods. If you have never been, I would recommend that you make a trip to the Tenement Museum. These are just a couple of postcards I'm showing you now. And here it is, the name of the exhibit that we were visiting, A Union of Hope, 1869. And in the interest of accessibility, I'm going to read this summary about the exhibit. Years in the making, the Joseph and Rachel Moore exhibit traces Joseph's history from his free black community of Belvedere, New Jersey, through his family's migration to New York City, and the community he and his wife Rachel built in their neighborhoods and workplaces. And then the rest is about the exhibit. And the exhibit is basically a 75-minute guided tour. And I'll be honest with you, I've seen and been to many exhibits here at the museum, and the tour guides are so knowledgeable and amazing. They really interact with you, they answer questions, they're full of answers. It's definitely something that you need to experience if you're ever in New York City. Now, let me tell you a little bit about purchasing tickets on the website. I visited the museum on April 29th, and that's several months ago because today is August 10th, 2024. So you can go on the website and you'll see all these different time slots, and you could pick your time slot and purchase your ticket. Now, for what you get, the price is not that bad. $30 for an individual, and if you're a member, you don't pay anything for the exhibits, and you can go to as many exhibits as you want throughout the year. Now, that's a great deal for somebody like me who goes to the museum often. And sometimes I go to the same exhibits over and over because it's like anything else. If you really enjoy something, every time you see it, you notice something different. I just want to tell you a little bit about the membership. You can get an annual individual membership for $85. And if you think about it, the price for one exhibit is $30. So you're going to make that back pretty quick. I have a family and friends membership, which is for 4 people. So sometimes I go and I bring somebody with me, or my daughters will come with me. For example, on Mother's Day, that's something I wanted to do, was go to the museum and see one of the exhibits with my daughters. So it was fantastic. And during the course of the year, if you want to make your money back on the $185 4-person membership, you would have to see 6 exhibits. For me personally, it's a great deal because I am now 4.5 months into the year, and I already made my money back on the membership fee. A Union of Hope 1869. This year, we've launched an all-new permanent apartment exhibit to our historic tenement building, 97 Orchard Street, telling the story of Joseph and Rachel Moore, Black New Yorkers who made their home in Lower Manhattan's tenements in the 1860s and 1870s. Also, this year means 2024, just so you know. I guess they're going to have to change this when we go into 2025. Explore the story of Joseph and Rachel Moore, Black New Yorkers who made their home in Lower Manhattan's tenements in the 1860s and 1870s. Joseph Moore moves from New Jersey to Manhattan in 1857. His wife Rachel from Kingston, New York, in the same decade. They lived in a rare tenement in today's Soho neighborhood, in a building with both Irish and African American New Yorkers. Years in the making, the Joseph and Rachel Moore exhibit traces Joseph's history from his free Black community of Belvedere, New Jersey, through his family's migration to New York City, and the community he and his wife Rachel built in their neighborhoods and workplaces. When we arrived at the museum, I went to the front counter, secured my ticket, and was told that Addy and my backpack had to go in one of these lockers. Oh no, that was not going to work. The whole point of the trip was to see the exhibit and show it to Addy. How could I possibly go into the exhibit by myself? Well, you'll see. Eventually I convinced them to let me bring Addy into the exhibit. And here she is. As you can see, she's ready to go explore. While we were waiting to go in and see the exhibit, we walked around the store a little bit. Addy enjoyed checking out some of the books with me. And I just want to make a point. You see the people outside the window there? About 10 minutes before your exhibit starts, everybody gathers outside on the sidewalk. And here's Addy again, checking out some more books. And now we're getting ready to visit the exhibit. But before we do that, let me just tell you a little something about these stairs. In these tenement buildings, they have wood stairs, as you could tell, right? The buildings are now required to have fire escapes and better constructed stairs because if the stairs are the only way you could escape the building and they catch on fire, the tenants are stuck in the building. I know this is eerie, but look at these stairs and what happens. Definitely not something you would want to come down in the event of a fire. Well, thank goodness for improved laws in New York City. That's all I could say, but I did a lot of research on that topic, and I'm not going to share everything I learned because we want to get back to the museum tour. Okay, here's a different view of the hallway that Addy is in right now, or at least you saw in the prior picture. She's standing on the stairs. And in this hallway, I want to bring your attention to this pipe here on the ceiling. You see that? That's a gas pipe. And back in the early 1900s, the tenement owners were required to put gas lighting in the hallway of these tenements because you can only imagine how dark these hallways were at nighttime, and the slip and trip hazards and everything else, just how horrible it was in terms of the conditions of these buildings that people had to live under. And here's another view of a ceiling gas pipe as well. And in this picture, you can see how they really tried to preserve the wallpaper and the molding and wood in these tenements. Here's another room we walked through, and you could see the same exact thing. The preservation of the wallpaper, the wood floors, the fireplace, and just look at that oversized window. Wow, it really does take you back in time. And here's another picture inside the museum. This tenement tour was of 2 rooms, and most of the tenements in the building only had 2 rooms. So you had a bedroom and a kitchen. So this is the bedroom. And on the left side of the room, you had your bed. And on the right side of the room, you can see near the window, there's a sewing area. And then in front of that, there's a fireplace. And here's Addy sitting right next to the bed. And here's a picture of the bedside table and a closer look at the book on the table. On the right side of the room is the sewing machine, or I should call it the sewing corner. I think they did such a great job with these scenes. They're so good. So while I was checking everything out over here, I had Addy out, of course. I'm just taking pictures and minding my business and sucking it all in because I think this type of excursion is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating, especially because it represents Addy's time period. Here's Addy again. So while I was over here and just checking everything out, some woman walked up to me and said, "Is that your dolly?" And she was looking at me when she said that, but it wasn't the voice that you would use when you're speaking to another adult, typically, anyway. And I turned around to see if there was a child around, and there wasn't. So at that moment, it registered that she was talking to me. And I just couldn't believe the ignorance that I was looking at. I'm going to be honest with you. And I didn't know how I should react in the moment, but I'll tell you how I reacted to her. I said to her, "Yes, this is my dolly." And then after I spoke to her in the same voice she spoke to me, I had a conversation with her, and I'll spare you all the details, but I had to enlighten her about the fact that she was so rude and spoke to me in that tone of voice. I honestly was in disbelief. And how dare her to do that to anyone? Oh my goodness, I was so mad. But I was calm as a cucumber. And I think when I was done talking to her in my regular voice, hopefully she felt embarrassed. And hopefully she'll never ever do that again. The one thing I can tell you is that she totally avoided me for the rest of the tour. She didn't even look at me at all. Okay, let's move on to the tour. Oh, jeez. Here is the fireplace. And you can see on the right side of the fireplace, there's another bed there. And I'm sure back in the day, the rooms didn't look as nice as this based on my research on the internet. They had bunk beds and all kinds of beds crammed in these tenements. This is a nice version of what a tenement should have been. And I wanted to point out, you see the chair here on the left side, it has all these laminated sheets. Well, the tour guides share a tremendous amount of information with you during the tour, and they pass these sheets around so that you can see the rent rolls and many other things in terms of how they traced the ancestry of who lived in these tenements. Before we leave the bedroom area, well, we're not going to leave it yet. I have one other thing to show you. I just wanted to insert a couple of pictures of Addy's bed and bedding because I think they did a pretty good job trying to replicate the tenement setup for this time period. And here's Addy. She wanted to show you the washstand. Look at this. How true to this time period. Seriously. Now let's take a look at Addy's washstand. Look at this. So this was added to her collection in 1993 and retired in 2008. Let's get a better look at this vintage wash basin and pitcher. Look at that. Now let's take a look at Addy's nighttime necessities. So if you wanted to replicate that, all you need is her washstand and the nighttime necessities. I don't know how much it costs these days, but I'm sure it's worth a pretty penny. Here's a picture of the set together. Look how nice it is. I can't wait till I make my Addy room one of these days. Here's the shelf above the washstand. I pulled back the door and here's a closet. I wanted to investigate a little further, but I decided that probably wouldn't be a good idea since the door was sort of blocking the closet. And they had a stack of blankets on the floor. I guess you really needed it back in the day because these buildings didn't even have heat. And here's a final look at the bedroom. I guess bedroom sewing room. Can you imagine? Let's think about something for a second. When you used your sewing machine or did any type of mending, you only had daylight, and I guess that's why the sewing area is by the window. And if you wanted to sew at night, you would have to use a candle. Can you only imagine sewing by candlelight? Now we're heading over to the kitchen. Just look at this. You cooked, you did your laundry, you ate. You did a lot in the kitchen. Just check out all the details. Look at the round table. It looks a little bit like Addy's table. I don't know if it has a what is it? Saucy Susan? No, it's not Saucy Susan. What the heck do you call that spinning thing in the middle of the table? Can somebody leave a comment below, please? Because I'm not in the mood to research it. And here's the laundry hanging in the kitchen. Now look at those clothespins. Those are the clothespins that go to Addy's work dress. The clothespins that you can never find. The elusive clothespins. Now let's check out the stove. I could sit here and honestly just stare at this for so long. I love it. I love everything about it. And look at that washboard. That's one thing that they should have included with Addy's collection, is some kind of basin and washboard. That would have been pretty cool, right? Kit has a whole laundry set. Why shouldn't Addy have it? And Addy agrees with me. She doesn't understand why it's not part of her collection. Oh well, we'll have to fix that. I just added a washboard and wash bucket or basin, whatever you call that thing, to my list of things to do. That list is growing. I'm working on collecting things for Addy's room and my dollhouse, so somebody's getting evicted and Addy will be moving in once I collect more of her items. Here we are. I'm carrying her through the exhibit, and I have to be honest with you, that lady who I had that interaction with is staying far away from me. She probably thinks I'm a fruitcake, but I'm not, and I don't give a shit what she thinks, or anybody for that matter, because I'm going to walk around the exhibit with Addy. Rightfully so. Here's the built-in shelf. I think you might have seen that in another picture. Now let's look at it one shelf at a time. I'm just sucking it all in, so I'm sure you are too. But I think they did a fantastic job. Here's a better look at everything that's on the table. And take note of the slate. How cool is that? Wow. I'm amazed. I really am. They did such a great job with this exhibit. Addie saw something she recognized and wanted to check it out. Let's see what she's up to. And look what she found. And here's a last look at this side of the kitchen before we move on and look at the other wall. I just want to show you a few things there. Here's the wall on the opposite side of the kitchen, and the door that's to the right is the door to the bedroom, and the door to the left is to the hallway. And I think I mentioned it before, but this tenement is in the back of the building. The tour of the tenement is over, and now it's time to leave the museum. Now I'm going to show you some pictures I took on our way out of the museum. Here are a couple of pictures of the hallway. As you can see, they really try to maintain and preserve everything in the building, or as much as they possibly can. Now check out the inside of these walls. You see all that white in between the wood? There's a term for that, but I don't know it. Maybe you do. If so, drop me a comment below and educate me. But that's horsehair plaster, and that was used in buildings up until around the 1950s. Imagine. Now look at all these pieces of floor covering. Our tour guide told us that they try to keep as much as they can that's original to the building. So I guess that's why this stuff is piled up and sitting around. Now we're going to walk down the stairs and head out to the street. Well, that concludes the tour of the Tenement Museum. I'm interested in knowing what you thought about the tour. Would you take a tour with your doll to a museum? Leave a comment below and tell me about one of your most fun and possibly favorite excursions or excursion with one of your dolls or dolls. And if you've watched my videos for quite some time, you already know that I take my dolls out a lot. Once I took a whole wagon of dolls out to New York City, and I'll include a link to that video down below in case you want to check it out. Now we're headed to lunch at one of my favorite restaurants. Are you ready for lunch, Addy? Let's go. Here we are. The name of this restaurant is Veselka, and it's a Ukrainian restaurant, and my favorite thing to get is the borscht. Hi, Addy. She got some water, and she decided that she's going to pass on eating anything. She said this soup does not look too appetizing to her, but I love it. We are back on the subway, and she is pooped out. Can't you tell? Wait a minute, she doesn't want to miss anything. So she had to sit up and check everything out. Now here we are on our last train ride home. And yeah, this guy's wondering what's going on. He eventually got comfortable with the whole situation. My oldest daughter picked us up at the train station. I hope you enjoyed this video because I had a lot of fun going to the city with Addy and making it. And if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, press the subscribe button. And if you don't mind, drop a comment below and let me know what you thought about this video. Was there anything in the video that resonated with you or anything that you liked more than something else? What did you think about the restaurant I went to? Do you like borscht soup? I honestly don't know that many people that like it, but I love it. So anyway, I'm going to end for now. Take care of yourself, and remember, AGTV for life.